Welcome to the SVG-TV News for Wednesday, February 5th, 2020. I am Khalil Kato with the details. Opposition leader Dr. Godwin Friday has expressed concern about the country's debt, which he said continues to balloon under the current administration. Finance Minister Camilo Gonzalez pointed out in the 2020 budget presentation that as at December 31st, 2019, the total public debt stood at $1.7 billion, up by 0.8% on the total disbursed outstanding public debt for the comparative period of 2018. Dr. Friday says, as it stands, the country's debt to GDP ratio remains above the recommended level at 74%, which suggests more expensive borrowing is looming. And it is worrying that the government may find it increasingly difficult to service the debt.
Concerning, Mr. Speaker, is that the central government's debt service as a percentage of current revenue has grown very fast in the last 4 years. I thought it was somewhere around 24–25%. In 2016, it was 25.1%. In 2017, it was 28.1%. In 2018, it had jumped to 30.2%. And 2019, 34.2%, and now 39% in 2020 projection. So between 2016 and 2020, it moved from 25.1% to 39.4%. And that must be worrying for the minister himself. Because when you take that you have to pay the debt, and salaries which account for about another half of the revenue, you basically have a tight squeeze on government's finances.
The opposition leader said the high debt ratio also has implications for a number of the productive sectors and services offered by the government.
It means, Mr. Speaker, for the average person, that the government may have to cut its transfer of payments to various departments. With high debts, the government can't buy as much medicines for the hospital, so the people will suffer. With high debts, the government cannot properly finance transfers to the ministries and the sectors such as tourism and agriculture and maintenance. I've said over there. So the effect is real.
Dr. Friday said though there are no new taxes in the 2020 budget, he is certain that it's just a matter of time before they are added based on the country's debt situation.
But as we have seen, this is an election year, so the government will hold off on increasing taxes for now. After that, though, heaven forbid that they're here following a next election, that they form government, that will be the time of reckoning. Because, mark your word, taxes will go up. As it did, Mr. Speaker, after the 2015 general elections. The point is that, having done so before the election, they then came back and they took it back. First by putting VAT on salt and margarine, and then they put VAT on 1 percentage point, increase from 15 to 16%, and then they lowered the threshold where VAT is payable on electricity. So 3 years in a row, the VAT was raised. They had to do that, Mr. Speaker, because they had no other way to raise money. That's the only way they know how to raise tax, borrow money. And moreover, Mr. Speaker, from the practice they've had, because of the paramountcy of the state in everything in this country, they feel that they have a duty to take people's taxpayers' money out of their pocket whenever they feel like it, or whenever they think they can get away with it.
The total debt service for 2020 is estimated at $267.9 million, or 39.4% of the current revenue. Deputy Prime Minister, however, and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sir Louis Straker, said the country's finances are in good hands and in excellent health. Responding to the criticisms leveled by the opposition on the economy and the public debt, Sir Louis said the statistics indicate that inflation is under control, which is a sign that the economy is well managed.
Rest assured that the finances of this country are in such excellent hand. We have inflation in check. I'm told that the public workers would be getting a 2% increase this year. And really they are 1.5% above what the inflation rate is. For all of last year, Mr. Speaker, I have the record here, the inflation rate was 0.5%. So if you take that into account, as a matter of fact, the inflation rate for December dropped 0.05%. If we are to take all that into account, and some people sneer at the fact that workers are only getting 2%, but they are way ahead, since inflation for last year was only 0.5%.
Sir Louis said the fact that the government for many years has not invited the IMF in for assistance is another sign that they are doing a good job with the country's finances.
Mr. Speaker, I have seen some of the brightest stars in the Caribbean, some of the best economies in the Caribbean. They have gone under and they had to invite the IMF for their structural program in their countries. But not once have we invited the IMF to come in here to dabble with our economy and our finances. Thank God we have the men of ability who are able to keep the ship of state afloat, so that we have the finances and we don't have to go to the IMF and say, listen, our economy, our finances are out of order, come in and help us. Not one public servant has gone by for a month without a pay. And we are adding, instead of subtracting, some countries have cut out thousands of people from the public service sector. We are adding, I'm told, through this budget, another 160.
The opposition continues to lobby for a citizenship by investment program for SVG, which they believe will help spur economic growth, while the government continues to maintain its position against the program. Sir Louis said the Prime Minister's and Minister of Finance's opinions on such programs are sound, and as the potential for harm to the economy is great.
So, Mr. Speaker, what they are saying, the OECD and the G20 are mindful of the fact that people can accept a Caribbean country as their residence and say they don't have to pay taxes there, so they don't get the taxes there. They are mindful of the fact that somebody can get a passport from St. Kitts or Antigua or any of these countries that promote CBI. And because of their Vincentian passport, the Antiguan passport, they can go to countries where they do not require a visa to enter into and can do criminal actions in those countries because of the passports they get from our countries. And they can now put us on a blacklist that would affect our economy, as we have been on their blacklist. I'm not saying what they're doing is right, but we have to be mindful of how the greatest countries in the world, the G20 and the OECD, what they say, for what they say would have tremendous influence on our economy here in St. Vincent. So that when the Prime Minister, in his wisdom, says that's not the way we want to go, I think we are traversing a good ground.
Meanwhile, in his contribution to the budget debate, opposition MP for South Leeward, Nigel Stevenson, expressed his concern with the unemployment level among young people in the country, even as Finance Minister Camilo Gonzalez said it is a good time to be a young person in SVG, a statement which Stevenson strongly disagrees with.
And I'm wondering, Mr. Speaker, why is it that this government, who speaks so glowingly about the young people, why is it, Mr. Speaker? I mean, I am wondering, why is it so much glowing language, descriptions about the young people, but the unemployment situation among the young people, 46%. Huh? That's a wonderful time to be a young person. Because a young person under this administration, Mr. Speaker, has no future. For young family, Mr. Speaker.
Stevenson also touched on climate change and its damaging effects on the environment. He said that a holistic approach is needed to address the situation, pointing to Buckerman Bay, which is one of the areas being severely affected. Opposition Senator Israel Bruce focused on the Ministry of National Mobilization and the allocations made for this ministry as it relates to building social bonds, which he said are needed in the country.
There was a time when it was said that fellas from Greg's couldn't come down to Lauders and Lomans, and fellas from Lauders and Lomans couldn't go up to Greg's for whatever sets of reasons. Activities like those organized by the Community Development Division and community organizations then, Mr. Speaker, helped tremendously in helping to advance the social fabric of our country. But I have not seen in the budget, Mr. Speaker, where resources are allocated to either to reinstate, to strengthen, or what have you.
Senator Bruce is also of the opinion that persons with disabilities were forgotten, as the budget did not reflect programs or financial allocations to cater for their needs. Government MP for North Windward, who holds the portfolio as Minister of Housing, Montgomery Daniel, told Parliament there is a $5 million EC allocation this year for distribution of materials, which will be given to Vincentians who need them the most.
Mr. Speaker, the ministry is overwhelmed in offering such assistance to all who is in need. Mr. Speaker, since the reconstruction of the houses under the reconstruction program, and I mentioned 232 houses were so done, keys were given to all of the individuals.
In regards to health, Minister Luke Brown noted the improved services at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital, especially at the Accident and Emergency Department.
It's an experience for the persons who need these radiological services, because if we could have a doctor on a shift system, making sure that there's a medical presence at the hospital all the time, and if we could have nurses on a shift system, making sure that there's the presence of nursing personnel all the time at the hospital. And if invariably, when somebody comes to the hospital at the A&E department, which functions on a 24/7 basis, we're going to need to refer them to some kind of radiological investigation, then it makes sense for us to have the staff at that department on a shift system as well.
Last Thursday, January 30th, was the 49th anniversary of the death of the first black U.S. shipmaster, Vincentian-born Captain Hugh Nathaniel Mossak. Although no major activity was held this year in his memory, plans are underway to remember him and the legacy he left behind in a big way on the 50th anniversary of his passing next year. As we hear in this report, one of the persons who was very close to Mossak, his former caretaker, said he deserves to be named a national hero.
Elaine Myers is one of the few lucky persons still alive to give an insight into the life of Captain Hugh Mossak, who left behind a legacy of courage, fierce determination, and accomplishment in the face of extreme hardships. Myers took care of Mossak for many years while he was living in Level Gardens, Kingstown, before he passed away in 1971 in the United States of America. Born in Union Island on March 26, 1886, Mossak became the first black man to captain a United States merchant marine ship during World War II, a huge accomplishment not only for Vincentians, but also in the black community. Myers fondly remembers Captain Mossak as a humble person who was discriminated against because of his race, but one who rose above it all and fought for what he believed in. For this reason alone, Myers strongly believes that Captain Mossak should be enlisted as SVG's next national hero.
And Mr. Miles told me some story how the white people treat the black people in America. And if you read his book, he went to England and he did it. When they speak about Chartier, to be honest with you, it's not Chartier. It should have been Captain Hugh Mossak, because he was in the First and Second World War. And he fought to free us. He should be You don't take good things and cast it away. And when done, when memory come back, we looking for it, we can't.
This very house was where Captain Hugh Mossak lived at Level Gardens and was given to Myers, his caretaker, as a gift. After all these years, Myers has been able to maintain and kept several items used by Captain Mossak, such as the 100-year-old chair, teacup, and bed.
I keep things to remember Captain Hugh Mossak. This was his home, and this is his home, and it wasn't like this, but I make it what you.
The elderly woman plans to have a grand 50th remembrance celebration for the man whom she said the Vincentian public should be more appreciative of.
He should be recognized. He fought, and he is something should be remembered. And by the help and strength of God, with this gentleman, I'm going to put my best foot in front.
A 50th remembrance celebration for Captain Hugh Mossak is being coordinated by a community activist.
And also involved in an organization some years ago, in the Bushel Rastafari movement, that wrote a letter seeking when they were going to decommission the old Hugh Mossak boat to see if it could be turned into a museum. And we were told no, they had to destroy it.
With the formation of national security in SVG in 1986, the Coast Guard vessels were given the name Captain Mossak in his honor. To further honor the captain for his historical contributions in global black community, the Captain Hugh Mossak Square was erected at Clifton Harbour, Union Island in 2004, the island of his birth. For SVG-TV News, Larissa Pogsley-Kidd.
The National Council of Women has expressed concern about the upsurge of violence against women and girls in SVG and the severity of these types of violence. In a news release, the NCW condemned the acts as disheartening and unacceptable, noting that violence against women and children is a moral affront and the continuation of these ills are an obstacle to sustainable development. The Women's Council said women and girls should be allowed to live free of fear, violence and everyday insecurity, and attacks against them is a violation of their fundamental human rights. Calling on persons to be more proactive rather than reactive, the NCW says it may be time for everyone to mind their neighbor's business, noting that faith communities and religious leaders should also re-examine their roles and become an active part of the solution to the rise in violence against women. The Council says the legal department of the government must enforce penalties and increase vigilance, and communities and the family must play their part in eliminating this scourge. Meanwhile, the Unity Labour Party has pledged its continued support to the government and RSVG police force in their efforts to curb all violence in SVG. The party urges citizens to be advocates of peace, to be clothed in the vestment of humility and restraint, and to be champions of goodwill, calling on all members of society to reactivate and embrace the mantra of the village raising the child within the parameters of international conventions. The party says it holds steadfast to the belief that violence can end with a commitment by each person to equality and peace, and an earnest pledge to save and preserve life. Students of the Petersville Academy were the first to showcase their talent in dancing, singing, and choral speaking at the 2020 Primary Schools Performing Arts Festival, PRISPAF, hoping to gain a spot in the finals. Here's a snippet of their performance today.
Wednesday morning me go look for work, but master say no work today. She just wants to be beautiful, she goes, unnoticed she knows, no limits she craves, attention she praises, an image she prays to be. Talking in my sleep at night, making myself crazy, out of my mind. Out of my mind, wrote it down and read it out, hoping it will save me. Out of fight, you can be reasonable, don't be impolite. I told you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 times. And I rise up like a day, I rise up, inside on the edge, I rise up, and I do
Officials and sponsors of PRSPAF encourage the students to continue pursuing their dreams even if they are not winners in the competition.
So those of you who can sing, dance, act, dramatize, even sports is very important. It means that if they did not do sports or dance or act or so, they would not have developed that skill. So we need these kind of skills in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
If you do not make it to the Grenadines, do not feel bad. Do not believe that you have lost. It is for you to go back and to improve on what you did. So don't make that become an obstacle for you to continue.
Education is just not just the academic, but it's an all-round total development. You have that side, the Christian, and also the Christian part of it too. That's very important. Can't leave out God.
The police here are investigating the circumstances surrounding the shooting of a 44-year-old sales representative of Cane Grove Bookament on Saturday, February 1st. The police say the victim was on her way home from work when she was approached by an unknown male assailant armed with a gun. The assailant reportedly robbed her of a quantity of cash and checks and in the process shot her in the left side of her neck. The victim was subsequently rushed to the Milton Cater Memorial Hospital for medical attention. She was treated and discharged and is reportedly in a stable condition. Police are seeking the assistance of persons with information relating to the incident that can lead to the arrest and prosecution of the offender. Persons are asked to contact the Assistant Commissioner of Police in charge of crimes at telephone number 456-1339 or the officer in charge of the Southwestern Division at 458-7329 or any police officer or police station they are comfortable with. All information, they say, will be treated with confidentiality. In more police news, the first Commissioner of Police parade for the year will be held tomorrow morning at the Victoria Park commencing at 7 a.m. at which time officers from the various departments within the organization will be on parade. During the parade, officers who performed humanitarian duties in the Commonwealth of Dominica during the aftermath of Hurricane Maria in 2017 will receive their Regional Security System RSS Medals of Honor for their invaluable service to that nation and to the region on a whole.